Alright guys, welcome back to another video. So we've got the bed frame all nicely assembled here. If you guys missed that in the end of the last video, we got the whole structure of it together. The last thing we have to do before we can start putting things together is fit in our dividers that are going in the headboard and the footboard. So these pieces are going to be very easy to fit up because all we need to do is figure out which side we want them on, because we do have some variance in over the length of this thing in, with the width between the top and the bottom stretcher there. So then we need to cut these to length, we need to cut some tenons on them, cut some mortises into our stretchers here, fit these in, then we'll be able to fit in our floating panels. So we're getting real close to having all of this stuff together and looking real dang good. Okay, I have to say, I really missed being able to use the dado stack to cut tenons. Like it's just so much easier, such a perfect surface. Everything is just square to each other, the boards are square, everything is just square. I mean, it's one of those things, when you're working on a project like this, you forget how nice all the machinery you've paid for it actually is. When we do get onto another project where we get to use the table saw and all that for doing mortise and tenon joinery, I will be so happy, because this bigger joinery, very challenging, very complex to actually cut it accurately. But when you get down to smaller pieces like we're doing with these dividers here, that's just like woodworking on easy mode right there when you throw the dado stack in the table saw. Anyway, now we're on to cutting the mortises into our long stretchers and actually getting these pieces fitted up. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. Okay, so we've got our dividers in there. Everything's holding together really solidly. You might be wondering why, when I was using the dado stack to cut the tenons on these divider pieces, I didn't cut them to an exact fit, and I used the block plane to kind of sneak up on it. And the main reason there is just for the router. The router does have some inconsistencies to it, just because nothing there is really solid, and even with that 1/2 inch bit, you can still sometimes get some deflection in there. So the best thing if you want a nice tight fit up like we want on here, and the best thing you can do is to go back in with something like a block plane or any kind of shoulder plane, rabbiting plane, anything like that, to just tune up those tenons so you get a nice tight fit in there. Because that way when we put the glue in there, everything will seize up really firmly and we'll have a very strong connection. Again, these aren't really a structural component. They do help prevent the top and the bottom from warping and pulling out. But even though these aren't a structural piece, we still want them nice and solidly attached so they're not flopping around and, you know, just loosely sitting in there. Okay, so I now have all the dimensions that I know my panels need to be inside of each of those spaces. Surprisingly enough, we were fairly consistent. Even though I wasn't actually aiming to equally divide up those panels, I was just kind of going with whatever the number that I had on my plans here that I knew would be pretty close. We actually kind of nailed it. So all of our panels are 22 and 9/16 wide, and then our headboard is 21 and 1/4 inches tall, footboard is 20 and 3/16 tall. So that's pretty dang close to what we actually have on these panels. So on all of our panels, we do have excess material that we now need to take off. And annoyingly enough, tomorrow I'm going to be going and picking up a tool that would be absolutely perfect for this. For a project that I just got confirmed on yesterday, but I would love to go pick up the tool today, but it's a Sunday and nothing's open. So I just gotta kind of make do with what I've got, and I want to get these panels fitted up because we might potentially be able to get this fully glued up today. So to do this, we're gonna kind of have to go between the table saw and the circular saw. So I'm going to use the circular saw to cut a straight edge on one side. Because our end grain here is not a perfectly straight edge, we do have some lumpiness to it. Obviously, we didn't cut it very square the first run around. Then we can very easily reference that new clean edge against the table saw fence, and we have a wide enough panel here and a long enough panel, because that's an important part of it, to actually go across the table saw, no issue. So that's how we're going to run through most of these. So we're going to start by squaring up one of the ends, and I got to try and make sure that I don't take too much material from one side or the other, because we want to keep this grain flow that we have running through all of these Bookmatched panels just as good as they look now. And there is the footboard. Okay, so we got all of this together. It's really funny now trying to take video of this stuff because it's absolutely massive. I've got the headboard leaning up against the garage door right now. I've got the footboard on the bench, and this stuff is both heavy and just really big. So there's not really, it's really hard to actually fit everything in frame. I've kept the lathe out of the way so that I can set the camera up back here just so I can get just so that I can actually get angles on this stuff without it being like just everything being cut off. So now we have to figure out is how we want to finish the inside here. So the panels obviously still have to be sanded with a 220 grit, but we need some kind of edge profile going on all these corners here because we don't want to leave these sharp 90-degree corners that we have. Obviously, that's not a very nice thing to lean up against if you're trying to sleep in a bed. So I have a few different options that I've been thinking about, and I'm still somewhat undecided on what I want to do. I need to do a little bit of testing first, but we'll just run through them. So first off is just a simple chamfer. So we go through, get all of our pieces down to matching up here. So we'll hand plane them, sand them, whatever it takes. Get them so they're all sitting nice and flush with each other. Without the panels in here, we'll run around the inside with a router with just a simple chamfer bit in it, and then that'll give us a nice bevel on all of these edges, and we'll just do that on all the inside areas here. Having a nice simple 45-degree bevel on the inside is just a fairly clean and simple approach, plus overall it's going to be a much simpler option. The other option is to go through with a roundover, and we could do a pretty decent roundover. We have 9/16 of an inch of material between our panel and this outer surface here, so we could put a pretty heavy roundover on the inside here, which would go really well with what we're going to be doing on the side rails now. On the side rails, we're going to be putting on a pretty hefty 3/4 inch roundover, just to make sure they're nice and soft so when you're getting in and out of the bed, you're not going to injure yourself. That was a big thing. And up on this top edge here, we're going to be putting a 3/4 inch roundover. So on the inside here, we could do something like a 3/8 roundover, which is about half as big as the 3/4 that we're going to be putting everywhere else. So that would be a nice thing. Only problem with the roundover is the corner. I still haven't really found a good way to get a roundover bit into the corners and then clean it up nicely to make it actually look presentable. So that's something that might take a little bit of testing. Another option is to go through and do a step design. So this is something I've talked about on a lot of my older projects. I haven't done it in a little while now, but it was most prevalent on the blanket chest, where what you do is you have different levels of thickness. So our legs here would be level number 1. We'd add a bevel or a roundover, which is what I'm kind of interested in right now, which I'm going to test too. But anyway, we'd have this first level, add a bevel or a roundover to that edge. We would then take thickness off of our top 2 stretchers here. That would be our next level. Then we would add a bevel or a roundover to that. And finally, we would finish it off with the dividers here. Take them just below the level of either the roundover or the bevel, whatever is on here. Then we would add the bevel or roundover to the dividers here. So that creates a nice step design. It adds a lot more shadows and just visual interest to the piece. And I think that's the route that I want to go because I think that would look really interesting. Okay, so I made up a couple test pieces here. So we got our one test piece, that's our thicker piece that has a 1/8 chamfer on it and a 1/8 roundover on it. So between the two, I definitely prefer, for this project anyway, the roundover style. Because what this does is, if nothing else, it's just a much softer transition. Visually, you really can't tell the difference between the two of them. It's such a small amount, but when you actually have your hands on it, that's where you notice the difference. With the roundover, you have this nice smooth transition between levels. Whereas when you have the chamfer, you definitely notice a much more of a hump there. There's much more of a line, a solid straight line there, that is not as nice. I could definitely feel, if you hit that in the night, that would be an uncomfortable thing compared to the rounded over side, which just feels a little bit softer and smoother. So for this project, the roundover is definitely what I'm going to go with. So we're not going to be starting with the edge profiles today because I want to wait till I have a little bit more time in the shop to actually go through and actually spend a day doing all this different thicknessing and that, because that's a much better process. But what I'm going to do off camera here real quick is just add in some black epoxy to this knot that we have so that when we come back to it, it's all ready to go. So tomorrow we're not going to be working on this project. I've got another project we're going to be starting. So tomorrow is going to be the shopping day. I've got a whole bunch of tools, supplies, and wood to go pick up tomorrow. It's going to be a very big day, very painful on the credit card personally. But it is going to be a very exciting thing because we get to bring back a whole bunch of fresh lumber to the shop, introduce some new tools, and just talk about some new supplies that I'm going to be trying out. So as always, guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.